Jams, jams, jams. Picture books and jams. Welcome, everybody, to PBJamz. Music and picture books, what a perfect sandwich. Squish them all together, what a yummy snack. PBJamz, yummy books and music. PBJamz, reading, writing, teaching. PBJamz, what a yummy treat. Jamming PBs all the time. PBJamz.
Good morning or afternoon, whenever it is that you're joining us for PBJamz, we are so thrilled that you are here. And I am here today getting ready to chat with Shannon Stocker about an amazing book that she's written called Listen. And it's about a musician named Evelyn Glennie, who actually became deaf and still made an incredible mark on the world of percussion and music in general. So the book is incredible, and Shannon is an incredible person. I've enjoyed chatting with her before this, and so I'm excited to have you here, Shannon, and chatting with us today. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited that you are including me in this and that you're having me here today. So I'm appreciative. Thank you.
It's such a fabulous book, and it ties in so beautifully. It's been really fun to, bringing in lots of different types of books for PBJamz. And so we've had, like last time I did Barnyard Boogie by Tim McKenna, which is, super fun and like full of just frolicking fun and onomatopoeia and just really, just super, super fun. And then to back that with something really, powerful and serious. Just so many different dimensions that music can bring to our lives, and also how it impacts books and literature. So I just love watching kind of the juxtaposition of that as the series continues to unfold. But thanks again for being here, and let's just dig right in and talk about, where did this inspiration come from? Like, I'm a musician and I teach music, and I did not know about Evelyn Glennie. So how did you find out about her, and how did you decide to write about her?
So I am trying to remember what year it was. I went to a conference, an SCBWI conference. I think it was early 2018, 2019. Had to be probably 2018, when the message from every speaker seemed to drive home, right what you know, right what you know, right what you know. And so much so that it was, if you don't know this, don't write it. And I had heard the first side of that message a billion times, but the second half of that message, maybe it had been said before, but I don't think it really came through to me until that moment, because I had been thinking about writing, and this is ironically, I think before even Aretha Franklin had passed. I'm a musician, and there wasn't a picture book out there that approached her life the way that I wanted to approach it. And when I heard that message, I thought, I'm not the right person to tell her story. I'm not. And so who would I be the right person to relay a story? Well, as I mentioned, I'm a musician. So yes, but what kind of musician? I spent 7 years fighting an illness that very few people thought I was going to be able to beat. And ultimately, I got weaker and weaker until I needed a cane. And then I got weaker and weaker over the course of a couple of years until I needed a wheelchair. And I was in a wheelchair for a couple of years, and I was actually given 2 years to live. And the way people look at you when you are different, it's different. The people don't make eye contact with you the same way. They don't talk to you the same way. They don't address you the same way. They don't give you the same benefit of the doubt that maybe you can be capable of something. There's a discomfort around anything that is different. And for me, that different was disability. And I still have the disability, but I'm able to walk now. So I'm on the other side of that part of it. but I won't ever forget the 7 years that I spent struggling for my life. They changed me. And so initially I thought I would write about a musician with maybe who was also in a wheelchair, or my disease is so rare that I'm not going to find somebody who's got that. But when I started to do my research, Evelyn popped up as the very first story when I typed in disabled musician with whatever other words I typed up. And I kind of read a couple of things and went on and looking for other things. And I kept coming back, and I kept coming back, and I kept coming back. I was so taken with her story. And so I started listening to different interviews that she had done. And I just got her. I felt like I knew her already. I felt like I understood certain things that she had gone through. Her story just really, really resonated with me. And so I read a bunch, I watched a bunch, and eventually I was like, you know what, I'm just going to do it. So I sent an email to her team. I looked up her contact information. I sent an email to her team. And a couple days later, they wrote back that she was interested in having a Skype with me.
Oh.
And I flipped out, of course. And had the Skype. By the time I had the Skype, I had all my questions and everything. I knew what direction I wanted to come. It was like this book was just, everybody who has that one thing that they've written that they're really, really proud of. I'm proud of all my stuff, but this one just like almost wrote itself. I knew immediately the angle I wanted to take. I knew there's just so much that I knew. And once I had her on board, the whole process was just a delight. So that's a really long answer to your question.
That's okay. That's a great answer. And we hear a lot in the writing world about, I mean, typically when we write picture book biographies, the person has passed already quite often, right? But I mean, that was a really unique circumstance, and how wonderful that you got to really connect with her personally and interview her and talk with her and back and forth. So I mean, that's just fabulous. And that she was happy to do that and excited about having this book out there, which is just phenomenal. I mean, the book itself is just phenomenal, and her story, like you said, is absolutely incredible. She's an amazing musician with or without her disability, as you were saying. I mean, just phenomenal.
Changed the rules, she changed the rules. That people with disabilities weren't allowed to audition, and she changed that. So when people talk about shattering glass ceilings, she really truly did.
She did.
She changed the rules around percussion.
So cool.
Around music, really.
Yeah. And so you said that you're a musician, and we didn't talk about this ahead of time, but are you a percussionist, or what's your instrument or your specialty?
I play piano, and I compose some piano pieces, and I'm a vocalist. And back when I had joints that would cooperate, I was a dancer, but and I also play guitar. And for a period of time, I lived in Nashville and got to play in the round there and do some fun things there. So, but I'm really with guitar. It's more, I picked it up and learned the basics so that I could accompany myself as I learned to write songs and things like that.
Yeah, nice. Have you written anything lately? Any songs?
I wrote a song that is actually out on YouTube as a music video to go along with my first book, Can You Save the Day?
Yeah.
And that was so fun because it's totally different. It's a kid's song, so it's meant to be simple and catchy and fun. And I still get people writing or to me to say, your song was in my head today. Thank you very much. Like, sorry.
Yeah.
But otherwise, no, I haven't composed anything terribly new. I'll sit down on the piano and compose a few bars or just play what I think all the time.
Yeah.
but it's more about my kids now,
Sure.
about helping them learn music because they're both into music as well.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, that's great. I like Tim McCann and I talked about that last week, and about as a musical parent, like it must be challenging to kind of wait and watch and see, are they going to be musical people and what are they going to pick up? And yeah, so I don't have kids, but I just think that, as a person, that music, and my husband too, like we both are very musical, and music's always just been a really big part of our life. And so, but you meet those people that just have no interest and no inkling or no talent toward music, and that would just be that would be hard. It'd be hard to work with that, I think.
It's so funny because I mean, musical theater was always my thing. And here at the Community Arts Center, they do an adult show every summer, and they did Hello Dolly. And so I did that, and
Oh, nice.
loved it. And but I had told my husband all along, when my daughter first expressed interest in auditioning over there, I was like, I'm almost afraid to let her go because I don't want her to feel like I am pushing her, because it's my thing. It's always
Yeah,
been my thing. And I don't want her to feel like it has to be her thing just
right.
because I love it. And she actually did veer away for a little while and did some other things. And now she and my son are actually over there now at the play rehearsal. She decided to do the play there instead of the musical, because they're doing a musical at her middle school. They're doing high school musical for the middle school musical, if that
Gotcha.
makes sense. And she's playing Sharpay.
Oh, how fun. That is
Yeah.
fun. I love it. Love that. That is
Yeah.
awesome.
I'm excited. So, they pick up what they pick up. She gave up piano, and I said, that's okay. All I ever wanted you to do was learn to read music. And then if that's not what you want to do, you go your other way. And my son has continued playing. So
Love it. Yeah. Yeah. I think that, I think it's one of those areas where our example as adults and mentors and parents, really oftentimes influences them in ways that we may not even, anticipate early on. But I'm glad they're continuing. So obviously in the book, there's a lot of well, in the first place, there's a ton of onomatopoeia, which I consider a musical connection in and of itself, right? Because it's kind of born out of the sounds that we hear. But
yes.
besides the onomatopoeia, which is throughout the book, what other musical connections would you like to talk about in the book itself?
Oh my gosh. I'm a firm believer in, because I'm a poet. And so I'm a firm believer in writing lyrically when you can, because it increases the readability of a manuscript. And so when I talk about lyricism with people, it's not just about onomatopoeia, which a lot of writers understand what that is, but
Sure.
it's about alliteration, using words that have the same sounds at the beginning of the words. It's about assonance, using the same vowels or diphthongs even in the middle of the words, and making that. It can be about rhyme, but when people think about rhyme, they think about da 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 day, da 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 dee, da 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 day, da 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 dee. And it doesn't have to be like that. If you're writing prose, you can have two words that rhyme in the same line, and that gives you a musicality when you are reading the manuscript. So when you're reading aloud, and Lin-Manuel Miranda is a master of internal rhymes and alliteration and assonance, and that's why it's your ears just love listening to everything that he writes. So that's what I try to do, as much of that as I can.
Yeah, and that definitely comes through. Even I think it's the very first line. I have my copy right here, and I know I see your copy behind you. It's so beautiful.
Devin's incredible. I mean,
The
somebody just shout
artwork,
for
yeah.
my illustrator, like she's mine, but I love her so much. And I'm personally, it's again, I think part of what makes this book so magical. The editor's delightful. I love the illustrator. Of course, I adore my agent, but and Evelyn is just every single person that worked on this book. I just feel so fortunate to be in touch with.
The illustrations are beautiful. I was looking at the end papers earlier. I mean, you can,
Right?
they're so lovely and intricate, and all the percussion instruments that are just woven into those end papers, and really throughout the book. But this line, if your ears can't hear the strum or hum or thrum of a melody, can music still swirl and whirl? So you really established that beautiful lyricism almost right off the bat there with a lot of that internal rhyme that you were talking about when it's, in the middle of a sentence, not necessarily in stopping lines, but
Right.
that, yeah, it makes it very, it helps it to really flow and just sound so beautiful when it's read aloud. So that piece is definitely there. Lots of percussion and a lot about the science of sound too, because of Evelyn and how she perceives sound. So as profoundly deaf, she doesn't hear it traditionally. She feels the vibrations, which is the actual absolute definition of sound, right? It is vibration.
Absolutely. Well, and that's the other interesting thing. I actually have a master's degree in anatomical sciences and neurobiology, and I went to medical school and completed classes, but I don't practice because I got sick. And
Right.
so the science and the music marry in so many people, and that along with the disability, I think that that's why this was my story to tell, even though I am not deaf or hard of hearing. My mom was completely deaf in one ear, well, mostly deaf, I guess, in one ear and partially deaf in the other. And both my parents were hearing aids, but that's not been my experience.
Right.
The other pieces, all my experience for sure.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a great point too, that sometimes it may not be that little piece that we're thinking about that may be the connection, but there may be another little piece somewhere. I mean, it may not be the bigger piece. The deafness is the bigger piece, I would say, in this, but that underlying piece of everybody with a disability or a different ability, like they can all relate to that. And that's where you could come in and say, oh yeah, I'm on the same playing field with that, even though my different ability is not hearing. I know what that feels like to be interpreted, as you were saying earlier, in different ways, and having people looking at you like, no, you can't, when you know you can.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the big thing, is to
Yeah.
know that somebody's telling you or assuming that you can't do something just because of the way that your body is shaped or works or anything else. It's just I know that feeling, and it's a bad feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Totally. So talk with you. So you've alluded a little bit to the writing process and how you did interviews with her and stuff. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you actually went from the first draft to the final copy that we hold in our hands today?
Yes, I will. And I'm going to preface this by saying that, again, it doesn't ever happen like this. So I know that I don't, this was my lightning in a bottle. Um, so I wrote my first draft after I had interviewed her, once, I believe. And it just kind of came out. And again, I had done a lot of work ahead of time, a lot of research ahead of time, but I did it all in the space of like 2 months. And then I wrote that first draft and I sent it to my critique partners, who were just effusive about it. I mean, they could not have been kinder. Everybody's reaction was, holy cow, this is awesome.
Amazing.
A few things here and there, but which again, this was my first attempt at nonfiction. Now I do write for Chicken Soup for the Soul. I wrote my memoir, which I have to cut in half because it's 125,000 words long.
Wow.
But so it's not that I'm not accustomed to writing nonfiction. But it was my first attempt at a nonfiction picture book. And so and at the time I didn't have an agent.
Oh,
when I
wow.
wrote So I took the manuscript, I sent it to an editor that I had met and connected with at a conference the prior year. And within 2 hours, she wrote back and said, I'm taking this to my other editors. I love this. And then within another 45 minutes or so, she said, they all love it. It's going to acquisitions.
Oh my
And
gosh.
my mind was spinning at the time. And so and then about 2 hours later, my first editor wrote and said she was taking a different book of mine to acquisitions. And I was like, this is when this is when I get an agent. This is when I do it. It's now or never. And so I wrote to my top, I was up until like 2 a.m. I wrote to my top 14 agencies, and got responses from positive ones from 7 or 8 of them.
Yeah.
And I went at that point with Allison because she just seemed most excited about my writing, not just about the book. She seemed most excited about my writing.
Yeah.
And then from there, she subbed it, and Jess at Dial came back with her offer, which was really, really good. And after that point, that's when we revised it a few more times. And so, I mean, it was all pretty like mind blowing.
Yeah. Well, it's a great example though. I mean, that certainly charmed and maybe even miraculous in this world of publishing, like we were talking about. But you know, yeah, but it's also, I think, the idea that right book, right person, right place, right time. Like I just think that that's really the key. I mean, certainly you can do your preparation and you can work hard and you need to craft the greatest story that you can craft of whatever you're doing. But the bottom line is you can have the greatest story in the world, and if it doesn't land at the right person at the right time, it's not going to hit. And yours just, I mean, it did that. And I think that's why we see the great discrepancy with books like yours that just seem to be charmed from, from the get-go, and people that have just, labored forever to get to that place. But it's because it's just, right time, right place, right person, right subject matter, right? Everything just has to, it's like a perfect storm. It just has to all come together. And yours,
and I did my first book on my own too. I mean, I actually had an agent and then cut ties with that agent in that whole process. That was back in this situation a few years ago when there were some toxic things happening with a couple agents that ended up leaving the field. But so I mean, that one was just me and my editor there, Sarah, who I adore. But yeah, so you can, it's about nose to the grindstone, looking for opportunities, keep writing, button share, all those things that you hear over and over. It's true.
Right. When you bring up a good point too about, utilizing those connections that I mean, I've heard you say that a couple of times in our conversation. I talked to somebody that I had talked to before, or, so just keeping those lines of communication open seems like a really good,
Oh, always,
also.
always. I've met some people on Twitter that I just have really connected with, and I'm so hopeful that I'll get a chance to work with them because they're just delightful as people. And that you always hope that when you meet somebody who you really, really like, that you'll have the chance to work with them because it just changes the experience. I've had 2 fabulous picture book editors, and I know a lot of people who haven't. So I know that I'm also very, very lucky for that. And I've actually got another one coming out with my first editor this summer. So
Nice.
yeah.
Well, that leads me right into that's a perfect segue. So what is next? What's coming?
So my next book, I know you will get this, but it's called Warrior. And it will make me cry just talking about it. For people who don't know, my daughter is a brain cancer warrior. And so this is an allegorical tale about a girl who is trying to reach the bell at the top of the mountain, because whichever warrior reaches it first gets to rid their kingdom of beasts. And it is about her battles with her little sidekick buddy who's a dog, and she's got a magic staff, and she goes on these battles through ocean and forest and mountain to try and get there. And in the end, we see her, of course, in her real life setting, but the transition from her fantasy world to the hospital world Sarah K. Turner is my illustrator on this, and it's a graphic novel style art,
Yeah.
which is super cool. But the way that she did this transition is just, it's magical. I can't I got the final art and just cried, and I showed it to my sister who cried, and the other sister who cried. So I'm like, okay, something is good here, because
Yeah.
you can't show it to a ton of people, but obviously
Right.
family is all very touched by it. So that one's
That
for
is
my girl.
awesome. That is awesome. Yeah, beautiful. Can't wait for that one. And is that going to be a picture book format, Shannon?
Yeah,
Yes.
picture. So that's a picture, because there's not anything out there. And so the book is not about how to deal with cancer. It's not, because we had people I've actually had a couple cancer manuscripts, which is crazy, because the first one I wrote before my daughter was diagnosed, my focus was pediatrics, and I was planning on doing pediatric oncology as a career, which again is crazy. So I have always been drawn to kids with cancer. I find them just remarkable. I every patient that I ever saw just left an indelible impression. And so I had a different manuscript that everybody said was too sad. And I'm like, well, cancer's kind of sad, but everybody who saw it, we had a couple people came back and suggested that instead of the one with cancer being the kid, maybe it should be the mom with cancer. And I'm like, but
that's another story. Yeah.
It's a completely different story. Exactly. And there are picture books out there on, like Mommy Lost Her Hair kind of things that help people, that are very important, that help children work through the realities of it. But to see yourself on the page as the hero in a story, and for these kids to understand that just because they're not the ones who reached that bell that day doesn't mean that they're not warriors. I mean, every kid in the hospital, I want to hear the message loud and clear: you are strong.
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
Can do,
yeah.
Make me cry.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. Yeah, that's beautiful. It's so important. So we will definitely be definitely be looking out for that one. Oh, yeah, awesome. What I would give you some, but I don't have any.
I know, I have a shirt. That's all I've got. My shirt, my sweater, whatever.
Do you have other things that you're working on right now?
I do. I have another one with this editor that I'm crossing my fingers on. I've got I'm actually right now I'm working on a screenplay, believe it or not.
Oh, fun.
With a friend that I did a show with back when I was a teenager. We were teens together, and it's kind of taking a life of its own. So I was working on characters for a YA, and I still have them percolating, but this is happening really fast. And that's what happened with my middle grade as well. So I have a middle grade that's out on submission right now. And I wrote that one entirely in the hospital next to my daughter, because I spent so much time in the hospital, for 16 months. And so I'm very hopeful for that. And I've got another one that's out on sub. But in terms of my actual writing time right now, that is probably for the next 2 months going to go largely to the screenplay. And then I'm going to switch back over to my YA again. And of course, there's always picture books. There are always picture books happening.
Yeah. How wonderful. Well, listen, you are a force to be reckoned with, and so many amazing works. Guys, she's got stuff in Chicken Soup for the Soul. She's got picture books and middle grades and YA, and I mean, just all kinds of things happening.
YA, I haven't done it yet. I want to.
That's wonderful though. I mean, you like could be such a just a cool person for anybody who's, wanting to kind of cross those boundaries and those barriers and write in, more than one genre and more than one age range. Which I haven't tackled yet. I have some ideas in my head, and a lot of if I do YA stuff for like the contest, it does pretty well. But I'm like, oh, that just scares me to try to do that YA. I don't know, like it just. But one of these days, so yeah, I maybe. Yeah, maybe knocking on Shannon's door. How about you guys? If you are writing across genres, check her out. Check out her stuff. Guys, remember that one of the best ways that you can support our authors is by doing reviews on Amazon and Goodreads and wherever else you can do reviews. Request their books from the library, share by word of mouth. Like that's just one of the best ways, I think. And I'm not on the published side of it yet, but to me, like just sharing by word of mouth, I hear teachers talking all the time on the sidewalk. Hey, have you read this book? Or, have you read this book? And so I think, that's just one of the greatest things you can do is just read the books and tell somebody you loved them and say, hey, I've got a book you've just got to read. So reviews and library requests, and tell your school librarians about these amazing books and get them on board with them. Music teachers, I keep trying to build that audience here, but I mean, this book, there are and I'm going to be posting about it. So check out the rest of the blog. But there's so many ways that a music teacher could use there's the whole Evelyn Glennie by herself, which would just be phenomenal. There's the sound of the science of sound and how music is produced angle and how our ears hear it and the vibration aspect. So the science part is there. There's the percussion angle. I mean, there's so many ways that a music teacher really at any level could take this book and create some amazing lessons. I mean, it's just so full. It's so full of amazing stuff. So check it out. And you can
also do Twitter and retweet people's things. I know right now, Sybil, Listen just made it as a Sybil's finalist.
Yes, I wanted to ask you about that. Yes.
So, go to Twitter, find me at Shannon Stalker _ because the other ones were taken. So I had to put my underscore at the end. So you go to Sybil's Awards, go to their page and retweet, show love for it. If you're in Mid-South, then there's going to be there are a lot of good books in Mid-South. There's going to be the Crystal Kite Award. Wait, that's Florida. Am I mixing up my words right now? See, now I'm not able to think. But whatever it is, wherever you get a chance, if it's not Listen, then, support some other book that you love through whatever capacity you have to vote. And yeah.
Lots of good ways to support people. Yeah. And of course, buying the book. I mean, and I'm just going to tell you, just want to buy it because it's just that wonderful. So just go ahead and put in the order at Amazon or Barnes & Noble or your favorite bookstore, and just go ahead and tell them you want it. Because you do, whether you know it or not, you do. It's
you need it in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. You do. So, oh my goodness. Thank you, Shannon. I could talk with you forever. I don't think we would ever run out of stuff to talk about because you're just so prolific and have so many different areas that you're knowledgeable in. And so thank you for joining us today. It's been a delightful conversation.
Thank you so much for having me, Tani. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, PBJamz peeps, that's it for this week, but stay tuned because in 2 weeks we'll have another fun episode for you and we'll check you out then. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day. Bye.
PBJamz, what a yummy treat. Jamming PBs all the time. PBJamz, jams, jams, jams. Picture books and jams. We'll see you next time for